those who are involved in making it come to life. Join us as we go behind the door.
Good evening, roomies, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Door with the Grey Rooms podcast. I am your host, Brooks Bigley, and with me tonight is Jason Pouris, the author of Season 4, Episode 12, entitled Seeds of Doubt. How are you this evening, Jason?
I'm doing well. How are you, Brooks?
I am doing well as well, I guess. I think in the moment I always am like, wait, how am I supposed to respond to an author when I ask them that? Because it's, it's the same thing. I'm doing terrible today. Arrgh! I wouldn't do that. So I'm doing well.
I mean, you never know. You might end up having an impromptu therapist session.
That is very true. We just we spin off the show into something else. Well, hey, I'm glad to have you back on board. I was thinking earlier that you're like an alumni of this now, but that would also imply that you're no longer a part of us. But you are still a part of us, so that doesn't apply either. But man, I'm so happy that you're part of Season 4. You gave us the beginning episode, the first episode of Season 3. You did, that bonus story that we were able to release publicly back in Season 2. We got to release another bonus story of yours this season. You're just a part of the Grey Rooms team permanently, I guess. So Season 5, 6, and 7. Can't wait for that too.
Yeah, I thought it's really great. I mean, I wish I had known about it earlier, because it would have been a nice little sequence to have been part of Season 1 also. But I've been enjoying the show since the beginning, and being able to be part of it has been amazing, honestly.
Absolutely.
I look forward to every season. I hope I can get something in for Season 5. I know there's about a month left. I'll do my best. But if not, definitely Season 6.
Sure. Yeah, you got a month, so, no pressure.
Work best when there's a crunch, right?
That's what everyone keeps telling me. That's when they do their best work, with that proverbial gun over their head. Well, hey, with this story, Seeds of Doubt, I love how you always bring a very rich craft to the table whenever we get stories from you. Many multiple meanings and themes, and here we go again with you've reached somewhere into your bag of tricks, and you've just pulled out this very colorful story with different interacting characters that make up this whole setting of just I don't even know. It was so fun. I had these vibes of Indiana Jones in my head listening to it, even though I know the time period is not exactly the same.
Yeah.
But man, talk about, being careful what you wish for. We got this shaman or shaman? Correct me, how is it? Shaman? It's shaman, right?
I think it's shaman, yeah.
Shaman, okay. I don't know why I'm saying shaman. I'm Shaman the shaman. So we got this shaman that you get the sense that he's supposed to be helping and guiding his people, but he definitely seems to have some kind of ulterior motives. He knows something about this artifact that they're looking for, but ultimately keeps it to himself. But then you've got the tribe chief that's supposed to be leading his people, but he doesn't seem to be doing a good job either. So basically, this poor tribe is just at the whim of these two men who the hell knows what they're doing. But your story tried to explain it all. So I mean, man, let's go back. Let's start. What precipitated you writing this? Where did you get all of these rich ideas for this story?
Okay, so the initial idea came from the creature. The creature was the impetus for all of it.
Okay.
So the way I thought about it was I was thinking about... I think it happened right after I wrote a sci-fi story. So I was thinking about the solar system and space and stars and creation and all that stuff. And then I came to and an idea sparked that was essentially something that lies deep within Earth from the beginning of the planet. Right? So that, I'm not going to get too much into detail because something that it isn't clear by just, it can be if you interpret the ending that way, but this is going to be a series of stories with the protagonist always being different and dying, but the creature remaining the main theme.
Now refresh me. I mean, I've listened to the story, read the story, done all that, but it's a little bit ambiguous to me. But how did the traveler become like the creature? There was like this transformation at the end.
Oh no, that's his actual how he actually looks. That's why he was constantly covered by thick furs, even in the desert. So essentially, he was hiding that appearance, and no one had seen anything except like his eyes.
Okay, so the creature was not actually like within the orb. The orb was just more of like an intercom that was allowing the shaman kind of to hear the voice and to interact, I suppose, with the ethereal version of the creature.
Yeah, I see how this might be confusing because I didn't go into too much detail because that's meant for a future story. But the traveler and the voices the shaman hears, not the same creature.
Sure. Okay.
The traveler, think of the traveler as an ancient race older than humanity that fell, and very few remain that have knowledge of advanced technology and things that had been lost that humans didn't know yet. So kind of like ancient aliens and kind of thing, if you want to.
Yeah, I knew there was like such deeper meanings behind, your story, and my mind was just reeling from listening to it all. Because reading it, you'll get your impressions, but really every time that you hear, Jason and JM come together like Voltron and put out the story, you really start to notice all the different nuances, or you're like, oh no, now I am understanding what would happen. But I was like reeling from the story, just like, oh my God, there's so much happening here. There's so much going on behind the scenes of the story, and we're just getting glimpses. So I knew, going into this talk that there was going to be more to it. So I'm sorry if I'm just hitting you right away, like, what does this mean? What does that mean?
No, go right at it. I love conversations like this because they allow me to develop these stories more in my own head by seeing them from another person's perspective.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And I could be totally off base, and all the fans and the followers are going to be like, what is Brooks saying here? This is not our interpretation. So this is me. But yeah, I was, when I first initially, experienced your story, I kept thinking that the voice was, I knew that it wasn't like something was trapped inside the orb. At least I didn't think it was. But, we have, this god of the shell is what it was called. And when the traveler suddenly became the creature that they were all saying that they were afraid of, or that was threatening the tribe, and the voice was telling the shaman like this person is a foe to your tribe. I don't know. I kept thinking that it was the voice. I kept thinking it was the god of the shell in the orb that was the creature, and it was just somehow embodied the traveler. So that's to me, it's great. I wasn't confused, or I don't feel like you led me down the wrong path. I feel like you set it up that we could take multiple meanings from it, which is almost like a great cliffhanger because it leaves you like, well, I think it was this. It could be this. And that's a good, it's a mark of a good story, wanting more. So the fact that it's a series, that you're going to continue it, man, bravo.
And don't cut yourself short. Not cut yourself short. I don't remember the expression. Sell yourself short. There we go.
There you go.
Because that connection, it's not quite that, but it's not that.
Oh, wow. I'm just even less confused now. It's not. Okay. Right. So somehow, I mean, clearly this, do we just call it the god of the shell then, as it was the voice?
Yes. Or you can call it Nomi. No, well, in my head it was Nomiad, but that really doesn't matter.
Yeah, and we had that in the script, but that name, there was never a chance where the shaman could say, oh, this voice called Nomiad is talking to me. So really, unless you've read the script, you wouldn't necessarily know, or, you read the show notes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, it's a pretty simple reversion, but like, it's, if you read it backwards, it's Damon.
You clever, sly fox, you.
But it didn't make sense for the name to appear unless the creature wanted to name itself. But then again, its name isn't something it gave itself because it doesn't need a name, because it is beyond needing names.
So then, Nomiad, the god of the shell, basically comes maybe from whatever, this otherly world origin that the traveler comes from. Them is that correct? Or there's just there's so many different worlds that could be existing here. But clearly, the god of the shell, Nomiad, was trying to warn the shaman, and I kept getting. I liked the setup that I thought that that Nomiad was maybe evil, trying to ultimately betray the shaman, just use the shaman as a tool to get free. We kept getting these glimpses of like, well, they're looking for this artifact. They know what the artifact is, but why is the shaman hiding it? Oh, because he wants the power. He wants to save that for himself. So clearly there's something evil, happening here. But now it just seems like that Nomiad was just trying to warn the tribe, just through the shaman, right?
It's actually the opposite.
Oh boy.
Well, it's the Nomiad is evil, but it's evil only through the results we see. Because this entire series is meant to play around with the concept of time, not time travel, but more like how things evolve through time. So the traveler is an ancient civilization, the remnant of an ancient civilization that came thousands and thousands and thousands of years way before humans were even a thing as a species. And then that fell apart. But during that empire of the past, they uncovered something and they made a connection to Nomiad. That's where that connection lies.
Okay. God, this story is so big. I'm like butchering it. I'm so sorry.
No, you have nothing to apologize for, because the thing with time is things fade and things change in the minds of those who absorb them. So there's no wrong answer as because everything leads to the same place. And you don't know what happened before. This is just how I thought of it when I was writing the story. But nothing is set in stone, right? The past is a gray mist.
Yeah, right. The past is interpreted as what we think it is, unless everyone had camcorders back then, really physically, filming what happened. You're right. Yeah, the past is always what we want it to be. Exactly.
So there are no wrong answers.
You're so kind. So, all right. So let's go back to the beginning of the story. You started to conceptualize this tribe of people, and it seems like the chief, you get right away that the chief is just kind of complacent and is just, he's not really, I don't want to say he's not being the chief, but he's not really trying, I guess. So it seems like the shaman, is as we start the story, the shaman is, how can I save, the people, instead of the tribe chief being the one to save the people. Right. And you do get the inference that there's a little bit of something in the shaman that he's vying for some kind of power. He's not I want to be the tribe chief. I'm going to kill the tribe chief and take over. But he definitely, already we see that in his world, he kind of is of the mindset that maybe he knows what's best, for the tribe's people. So they're looking for this artifact.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how did you then start to you said you started the story with the creature, but how did you start to layer the idea of, this kind of almost, I don't want to say fragmented tribe, but definitely a tribe that was headed towards doom because the tribe chief is not doing what he needs to do. The shaman is kind of doing what he wants to do, but really only for himself. How did you start to come up with those points?
Okay, so you went from Nomiad to the first connection of Nomiad with any kind of intelligent being on Earth. So then it went to the Travelers people and that empire. And then I'm like, okay, that fell apart and Nomiad was sealed away. Now what? Okay, when's the beginning of human settling down in a certain type of civilization? It's Mesopotamia. So I went there, and then I'm like, okay, what kind of thing do I want to talk about? And it went to arrogance. And so I wanted to show a tribe where its two top people were both arrogant, but in different ways. They both think their way is the right way, but they act in very different ways. The motivation's the same. They both want the prosperity of the tribe. They all both earnestly want that. It's not like one of them doesn't care. No, they both care deeply, and they think that because their way is the right way, that anyone else that's dissenting needs to be taken care of.
Right. And that's so, analogous to, I feel like, constantly where civilizations have been going throughout the centuries is even just now. Like there's always, ever since that moment where we were just separate people roaming around and then decided to come together, then you needed someone to kind of be in charge of that. So then you appoint the leader. And the leader always invariably maybe is like, I want the best for my people. But over time, like you said, there's this bit of arrogance. It just seems to be human nature to develop some type of arrogance that then ultimately takes over, that seat of control in their mind. And then it's like, well, I'm doing this for the tribe, but I'm also doing what I want. How will this benefit me and then benefit the tribe, kind of thing. And I'm just speaking loosely about the idea of a tribe, not specifically your tribe in the story.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a great jump off point. I mean, the very first time I read it, I was like, okay, how does this work? Is this like the early 1900s here? Are we just talking about, and then as I read it again, and then ultimately, like I said, I listened to the story, it made sense. Like, oh yeah, no, this takes place like way, way back in time. Like this is like humans figuring this shit out together, like how to band together and what to do. And you got these people at the will of these two arrogant men. So then what then got you into like, okay, so we've got the setting, you've got your kind of your characters roughly together. I love this idea of how you showcased arrogance, but different versions of it and how that affects people. But still, this idea of this god of the shell, Nomiad, like I said genie. It was like a genie granting wishes. How did you then start to incorporate that? Like what way did you figure out how to plug that in? Because I don't recall, like my question is turning super long here. I know that you, from your other stories, you do kind of reach into lore and myths for some of your writings. And so to me, it's like you combined the idea of a genie into this other portion of just creatures and all, different realities living together. Like how did that all come together?
So the way I thought about it was, since this creature originates at the beginning of Earth's time, when the Earth was born, it had a certain gestation period, so to say. And then from that, it started forming a connection with the outside shell, which is where humanity ended up existing, and wanted to find a way to free itself from its constraints, but all it knew was deep time. It was there for billions of years. So its plan will take a long time. So it makes choices, tries to communicate with the people like the shaman, who are in positions where it will allow itself to go in the path that it needs to go in order to be free.
Kind of like a one-way symbiotic kind of relationship. Like it needed the shaman to ultimately get to its goal, to be free, but it was trying to give the shaman, just enough to entice the shaman to free it, to get it out, promising it these wishes. Interesting. Yeah. And it sounds like the god of the shell was also arrogant then. I mean, arrogance runs throughout this entire story.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally about all four. I consider the story to have four main characters, even though they don't play as big of a role as others. It's the shaman, the chief, Nomiad, and the traveler.
Right, which is the creature.
Yes.
Okay. But we don't think anything bad about the traveler in the beginning or even through most of the story, because it does seem like the traveler was sucking up to the tribe's chief, because we keep hearing the shaman say, like, oh, he just listens to whatever the traveler says. So the traveler's doing his little arrogant thing, trying to get, he sees the tribe chief as his way to get to his goal. And then the god of the shell somehow cons the shaman, and not cons, but entices the shaman into like, oh, no, listen to me and I'll give you. But the traveler didn't seem to have any magical powers per se, other than just influence and telling things and saying what to be careful of and this and that. Whereas Nomiad, like, definitely, I mean, what caused the earth to shake and swallow up, one of those tribes people? Was that Nomiad?
Yes.
Okay. And then, it's like little wishes were granted here and there. So there's definitely this power that Nomiad has, and it's just kind of like, like the waiter that comes up and, carves some Parmesan cheese onto your food, was just kind of giving out a couple of bits of its power to the shaman, just been a roundabout way of granting wishes.
That's right.
Man, that ending, I want my tribe to be prosperous. Okay, well, here's some seeds, but they're gonna come out of you and kill. That was definitely a brilliant ending to the shaman, not to the story, but to the shaman, because he got his just desserts, man. He got what he wished for.
That's right.
Yeah. So you've written before, that story. What was it? The Rivers. Season 2, and you pulled a lot from mythology from that. Is this what you're really interested in? Because if I were to line up all the stories you've done for us, right, and then even like the bonus that we released recently, your Venus flytrap story is the only one that like stands out as like, one of these things is not like the other, where you went hard left and was like, I'm going to do sci-fi. But you're back now. You're back now to, what you do well. So tell me more about that. Like, what are your influences this way?
So, most people who are into these kinds of stories with a wish obviously would think of Monkey's Paw, very classic. So that's always in my head. The Monkey's Paw whole situation, the twisting the wishes. I saw someone on the Discord saying that that the creature Nomiad reminded them of Riven from the game Destiny, which apparently Michael Zenke has written for.
Yes, he has.
Which I didn't know, so that's cool. So it's honestly, it's the very concept of twisting wishes was one. Like the whole series would be Weeping Wishes is like the series title.
Okay, so the plan for the overarching story that you have, or the series that you have going. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Do any of your other stories kind of loosely fit in any kind of way at all?
Maybe tangentially, but this specific series, for example, I can tell you the next story is taking place in Stonehenge.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love it, because what is ultimately the origin? Do we know the origin of, in real life, like why Stonehenge was set up the way it was, other than just to kind of maybe see where the stars are and see where the sun's supposed to be?
There is something that they discovered. I remember reading about it. I'll have to refresh my memory. It's not 100% because things like that never can be with something that old. But they have a vague sense because there's like other sites similar to it, smaller ones. So it had to do, and the whole thing about getting the stones. They theorized it might be there's some rivers that could have been further closer there. I don't know. It's not as important as to the reality of it, because this will the result will end up as what we have now, but how it ended up happening, I'm just gonna make my own thing.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, you're the author here. You get to do all of that. That's great. I really appreciate how you are so confident in bringing these mythos. We don't really cater to this with other authors, or other authors don't cater to it. Anyways, we we're a horror podcast, and yet you have rolled the dice several times with us with these just brilliant stories about such greater concepts than just, this guy's going to kill this other guy, and then this woman's going to watch, and then she might die too. And, so it's so fun to know. Well, I mean, when I knew that you had submitted stuff for us for season 4, I was like, oh, yes, Jason's gonna hit us with some totally different stuff than what anyone else has done. So I really appreciate, your writing style and your commitment to, I feel like you don't, You seem to write for yourself. You write what you like and what you love, versus like someone.
100%.
Yes, versus someone trying to like, what do I think will hit the most, and get the most people interested, or let me write like some other people. I could not put you necessarily at the moment into a category with other writers. I would say like you would be your category, and then maybe over time I might stick some other people. Oh yeah, that guy's like Jason Pouris. This woman's like Jason Pouris too. So that's really cool. How you approach stuff
like
as an
that.
author. Yeah.
Honestly, I've had this. In one sense, I consider it a tick, even though it's not a bad thing. I really enjoy it. The tick of storytelling, but like the storytelling, not like traditional in any sense. Sure, it might be inspired, like the cicada story was inspired by Aesop's Fables, which also sometimes I think it's the grasshopper and the cicada, but I think it also is with a different insect in some countries.
Yeah, I mean, I as a kid, I remember, some story about like it was like the ant and the grasshopper, and then like one of them was lazy, and was just always like, I'm just enjoying the summer, and like, man, come on, ant, you gotta come enjoy this with me. And the ant's like, no, we need to prepare for winter. He's like, why? You got all the food around you everywhere now. You're really good, I think, again, at pulling from fables, pulling from old mythos that are deeply ingrained in human nature. So you've just added that to the pile as an author, to your the canon of all writing on the planet. That's great, man.
Yeah. I also really enjoy Lovecraft. And so that's where the whole, as for example, Venus Flytrap, that was very much on the Lovecraft end of things.
From season 1, or season 3, episode 1.
Season 3, episode 1, yeah.
Yeah.
And for this story, honestly, I really pulled from my love of history. It's something I discovered as an adult, because all throughout school, history was not a popular subject. And neither was it for me. But then somehow after college, I just spent a bunch of time watching, reading, learning about everything that happened in the past.
So you like to consume media that has to do with like where humans came from, basically.
Yeah. I like creation.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a great place to start, because again, storytelling is so, I would say, uniquely human, but like I'm sure that aliens on other planets also tell stories to each other. But where did our religions come from? It came from storytelling. It came from ancient man and women sitting around the fire and looking up at the stars and saying, what are those shiny things? Mm-hmm. What are we doing here? Why are we here? And then crafting stories behind that, and that's such a rich and beautiful place to start. It's such a great origin, I think, to use for telling stories, because why is someone sitting down and writing a story? Well, because that's what we've been doing forever. It's a great way to communicate where we come from, what created us. It's a great way for us to figure out ourselves, is to reach back into, and like you said, time is, the past is not best necessarily set in stone. It's our own interpretations of that, and that's all that storytelling is our interpretation of things.
Exactly. You got it just right there.
When you sit and you write other things, do you ever do you ever just kind of meander around with a story and then feel like, this isn't going anywhere, or this isn't rich enough, or this is too surfacey? Or do you always feel like there's a really good intent behind what you're writing?
So, I don't know if it's surprising or not, but a lot of the stories I write, I don't do a lot of planning ahead of time. I usually just write a sentence or two, and then I start. I just pick whatever feels right in the moment as a starting point to tell the story of those two sentences, and then I just let it go, and then it just develops. I don't know. It just kind of makes sense to me as I'm typing it. I'm thinking like maybe a couple paragraphs ahead, and it just goes on like that. So there's like a whole chunk of improvisation in how I write,
Sure.
and then after a certain point, I start going back and like adding maybe references or trying to do some foreshadowing, or like if I notice something in the story that like, oh, it would make more sense if I did this. And then when I finish or have like a reasonable length, I start doing the other drafts and like just going through it line by line.
Sure. Okay. Now, in terms of your writing, have you, like, what ultimately is basically pen to paper right now that you're working on?
The most active I've been is on my Instagram, which for the past 2 years now, I've been posting several poems a week. I know that's very different from horror short stories, but essentially it's kind of the same thing. I write about what I want or how I'm feeling. I have like weekly segments, one per each weekday, and one of them is mental health related. The other one is just about ranting about how I feel or whatever's happening in the world. Friday, and for Friday, for everyone to feel a little better, I have a story thing called forced positivity, which I force myself to write something that isn't depressing or anxiety inducing.
It's like you're journaling. You're journaling through poetry, basically.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then of course putting it out, publicly for people to consume.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Do you have any new ideas kicking around, in your head? Like anything that you're currently working on in terms of overall story writing?
Yes. I want to start the second Weeping Wishes story, but besides that, I have a lot of things that are in like very early stages. I'm just trying to decide what makes more sense to put time into. Like I have,
Sure,
I have a
sure.
story that let's just say the title I have so far is called The Ice Cream Factory, and it involves
Oh.
and it and it involves finding out something very disturbing about how ice cream is made.
Ooh, color me intrigued. Is that like a longer story or kind of like another like horror short?
No, this would be like if I start this one, it would be for the Grey Rooms. It would be.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, we haven't done anything like that before, where we like subvert something so normal and turn it on its head and make it super evil.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Excellent. You have a month to write it, Jason. You better hurry. Putting that pressure on you right now.
All the pressure.
Get that done. Get that done.
So besides that, I'm trying out this thing called Vocal. It's like a website for writers and other creatives. I don't know if it's anything other than writing. And I've just put some stories that I didn't know what else to do with there. Some of them I submitted to places and they didn't go through. So I'm like, might as well be out there for someone to read it if they want. And I have also the prologue of a horror novella that I've been trying to finish for a while now.
Oh, Nice, nice. So you definitely have some pokers in the fire, basically, and some of the stuff is available, for people to kind of peruse on the internet.
Yes, I have 5 short stories already out on my vocal page. One of them being the prologue of the novella.
Okay, so people have a place to go to hear your stuff. I always say, at the very end, like, hey, let us know where people can find more of your stuff. But you're just like, hey, let me just tell you that right before you ask. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, yeah, as we do draw to a close here, tell people about where to find this poetry, because I think that is awesome. We need more of stuff. You've said you dedicated 2 years of doing this very steadily. That's very impressive. Where can people find all of that?
So that's going to be at my Instagram at the Hypercanon. And to make everything easy, all the other links to all my other stuff is there too. So my vocal link is there. So I don't need to direct you anywhere else. You just need to go to the Instagram and you can find everything else from there.
Oh, it's perfect. It's your digital business card.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, you are a very fun author to read. You're like I said, you're different than the rest, and it's not in. I don't know. I don't want to say it's not a bad thing, but I want to say it's like a good thing. It's just so. It's just so awesome to have an alternative genre, I guess. Like it's like you're like historical horror. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. But I do love, and I hope that other authors can take a gamble the way that you have with us. That they can say, hey, this is worth it. This is great for storytelling. Let me take a hand. And I'm sure that there are authors out there. I just don't personally know of those stories, but I definitely think that this is an intriguing arena of storytelling to draw upon the old mythos of humans. So, man, thank you for being a part of season 4.
Thank you for having me. And yes, this kind of storytelling for me is I'm trying to. It's a different perspective, trying to see things from as wild of a perspective as I can, from time, from space, all of it.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I love that you did. I hope I didn't sound rude or anything earlier, but I love that you took that hard left and did sci-fi. So, I'm confident that I know that you're just a good author in general, that you can write well and be intriguing and rope us into a story. But when you gave us these other more, like I said, like this historical horror, pulling from mythos, and then you're like, and then you're like, space, cats, boom. I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. Holy shit.
Throwback, the other behind the doors.
Right. You need to write like a horror romance next. That's what you got to just cover all the genres.
I have one. It's essentially romance in the age of a pandemic, but the pandemic is like a zombie type pandemic.
It doesn't matter. Romance and zombies. I mean, that's awesome. I love zombies, so I'll read that. That's great. That's great. Is the story finished?
No.
What are you working on? Okay, it's still an idea. Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Hey man, season 5, season 6, we're here for you, man. Just get those stories down first.
Yeah, gotta do it. Gotta feel that pressure. Gotta feel it.
Exactly. Well, it was great for you joining us tonight, Jason. I appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat, and I thank you for sharing your world with us here in the Grey Rooms.
Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure every time I get to talk to you, because you're so wonderful. And and anytime I get to hear the wonderful work that ends up being my story through your guys' vision, whether it's sound, whether it's the voice acting, whether it's JM, whether it's all the art, anything. It all looks wonderful, and I'm really glad every single time I get to be part of it.
You're the best. Yeah, this was a super solid story. I mean, the Cassie's art was really cool and interpretive, and like if you just looked at that art, you'd be like, I have no idea what this is about, but I'm intrigued. And then JM with that music. I heard some earlier tests. He was trying that out before we even knew which story it was a part of, and it was different for him to go down that avenue. So that was really cool how he was able to fit that kind of the tone of everything happening with shamans and tribes people and evil genies, basically. He absolutely nailed the music for that.
Yeah.
And Jason, of course, Jason's being Jason. I mean, at this point, Jason is just an audio god. Just, I'm sure he's like, he could be half asleep and still produce the most amazing story, because he's just so dialed into exactly where to put everything and how to make everything spatial. I heard a lot of I felt I was in the cave, or not the cave, I felt I was in the trench that closed up, where the artifact came out of. I really felt like the tribe's people around me, so Jason is amazing as always.
Yep. He is. Every time I get to hear him talk, or even just chat in the Discord, just a great guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jason. And as usual, the biggest thank you goes out to our fans and followers who listen daily and spread the good word of Bob. May you languish, lament, and loathe, but always with love. #stay gray. Take care and enjoy your evening, Jason.
You as well, Brooks. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And good night, folks. Bye.
Join us each week after every episode for another edition of Behind the Door.